Nick and Sajay, we would like to welcome you. And Sajay, your first introduction. What I'm going to suggest is, Nick, might you start off? You're a known quantity to the group. Introduce Sajay and then have him speak briefly. And then I did send you what we're suggesting is a kind of a conversation kind of thing on the 3 or 4 items I sent you. So would you, Nick Patel, who has been promoted to Director of Public Works, is it?
That's correct.
Okay, congratulations, a few months ago.
Thank you.
Sajay has recently joined the city and we welcome him. So why don't you, if you'd like to stand, and we've got our Zoom camera up here, and okay.
I can say.
Okay. All right. Okay, Nick, take it away.
Yes. So again, sorry for being extremely late. I guess we missed the memo. There was a couple of emails you sent out about 5:30 at 4. So sorry about that. First of all, and I've been in the city since 2021, and since that point, there's a lot of things that the city has grown and evolved, and I've also got a chance to kind of, the EDCM was one of the things that was a big task originally, that to kind of pass that. So, I was honored to get this position now. I think I've been in this position for 6 months, and so a little bit about Saji, right, is that him and I have known each other through the industry for a long time, right? Even when I was at DOT, I knew of Saji. We worked in the same building and that aspect of it. So, we've known each other. We've had a good relationship. We've seen each other at Engineering Society. So when this opportunity came up, and he was with City of Holmes Beach as the Public Works Director there, and he's also, previous to that, he's worked at a private consultant firm. He's also been at Manatee County for quite some time. He's also been at Sarasota County as well. So he's got over 30 years experience, that brings to the table. So happy to have him on board, and welcome, Saji. And if you want to say a few things, that'd be great.
So yeah, again, apologies for running late. Didn't read the email very good. So appreciate you all having us. But yeah, my name's Saji Kamiya. The one thing that I kind of have been telling folks is first name is spelled like sage, because my parents were fun hippies and thought that would be fun to be able to spell it one way and pronounce it a different way. So if you see sage, it's actually pronounced Saji, just for fun. I don't have a good reason. So thank you again for having us here. And so I have right at 30 years of experience in the engineering profession. I've done some stuff on the public side, some things on the private side. So I've seen some things done well and some things not done so well. And so hopefully I can kind of bring that to the table and help to do things the right way. And yeah, I've known Nick for, gosh, it's probably been over 10 years now, when we were working together when we were in the county building at the time, Manatee County building at the time. And so just the opportunity came up, and he enticed me with getting to come to these awesome meetings and said, you got to come join us. So I said, sure. But yeah, happy to be here and happy to be a part, and looking forward to getting to know everybody a little bit better. And of those 30 years, I've been in the area. So I grew up in South Florida. Don't hold that against me, but have been in the Sarasota Manatee area since '96. And so in a way, I feel like coming to the city of Sarasota is a little bit like coming home. My first job right out of school was with Sarasota County, working on stormwater things of all else. Glad to be with the city and looking forward to getting to know everybody. And so I guess we'll talk about projects later, but you want to keep that on? Okay, you want me to start some of them? Yeah.
We're going to go over some of the things that impact downtown area, and I'm going to have you cover some of those things, and then we'll get into those conversations.
Of course.
Yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, just a couple of updates. So the 41 and Boulevard of the Arts is one that, we've been coordinating with FDOT to implement some safety improvements. We know that that's an area that's important to a lot of people. One of the concerns is often with FDOT, and we love those guys because they have some awesome standards and some awesome rules that we can use and apply. But sometimes they focus a little bit too much on the numbers. And so because of some of those things, that intersection itself, ranked a little bit low. It was number 879 out of 2,000 as far as fatal and serious injuries. So, it's one thing to see actual numbers and fatalities. It's another thing for the near misses that don't get counted very well. And so we knew that was a concern and that was an issue. And by we, I'm mostly saying Nick, because he gave me some of these notes. So Nick, coordinate a lot with FDOT and gave them some things to kind of work on and think about. And so those things that they have implemented include things like extending the lead pedestrian interval up to 5 seconds in some cases, adjusting the interval to provide more pedestrian phases on both sides of 41 when it's activated, replacing the brick crosswalks with high emphasis striping, installing accessible PED signals on all the approaches, activating no turn on red and yield to pedestrian signs, signal timing adjustments and things like that. And so we will continue to look at those things going forward. So those are things that we want to continue to address with them. So not done, but those are some things that we thought were important, and FDOT did agree to those as well. Boulevard of the Arts undergrounding. We're working with FP&L to underground power lines. The limits from that is Florida Avenue to Orange Avenue, and it's currently in design by FPL. And so we've been working with them to make that right, and including, I think David sent us some of the pictures for some of the leaning poles and stuff. And so we were able to work with FPL on straightening up some of those things too. 10th Street and Boulevard of the Arts, corridor improvements. So $12 million federal grant has been awarded. 10th Street complete streets improvements includes things like lane repurposing, wider sidewalks, protected bike lanes, some landscaping, ADA improvements, roundabout at Orange Avenue on 10th Street. On Boulevard of the Arts, intersection improvements too, parking improvements, wider sidewalks, landscaping, and ADA improvements. And then specifically 10th Street and Boulevard of the Arts for the corridor improvements too. The Federal Highway Administration, working with them to review some of their environmental and design documents that's required, working on a scope, and then an agreement to use some of their funding for moving those projects forward. So just a couple of highlights on those.
So there's a roundabout plan. Orange, is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct. Yes.
When is that?
That's all part of this whole piece between Boulevards Arts and 10th. So right now, there's multiple things going on. It's not just the grant agreement with FHWA, but it's also working with the Metropolitan Planning Organization, because we're providing $3 million match, and has to, the way it works is that once the agreement gets executed, then the money flows through FDOT, and then FDOT would reimburse us for those funding. So we're looking at, by the time we get everything worked out, it's going to be last quarter of 2026. I know that's a long time, but that's how slow federal government sometimes works. And, there's multiple agencies involved with this, but to kind of give you an outline, once the agreements get in place, we are going to bring it back to the community to kind of tell what is going to happen, as far as finalized, because with the $12 million, when we applied for the grant compared to what we can get for it today, the costs have gone up, but we're going to focus on critical items like multimodal opportunities, shade trees. We're also looking at wider sidewalks so you can activate the, if there's going to be businesses there to get sidewalk cafes and those kind of things associated with it. So there's a lot of things that we want to kind of accomplish, and also make it more pedestrian and bicycle friendly, as well as, making sure vehicles can go through there safely. So those are some of the things that are part of this grant agreement. And the other thing is that the intersection of US 41 and Boulevards of Arts is not part of the grant, just because the cost escalated so much. And, today I actually had lunch with the district secretary, the new secretary that's, we kind of had some of these discussions tied to it. And, back in the day, we did ask them to contribute $1 million, which would in turn give them $3 additional million. We could have done the improvements in the intersection. At that time, they couldn't commit to it, so we didn't include the intersection as part of that. So, but I did emphasize to him today about specifically the activation going on specifically at the Bay, and the Quay Act, the Quay built out is happening. And I also explained to him that in Rosemary District, there's a lot of development happening at that location. So there's going to be a lot more pedestrians crossing US 41 as part of that. And, I again pleaded to him to see if we can look at it to see what other enhancements on top of this that they could help, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to continue pushing the MPO to prioritize this intersection, as well as continue to express to DOT that, as more activation and this built out happens, there's going to be more concerns coming their way as far as pedestrians safely crossing at that location. So he did agree to continually to look at it. And actually, we had lunch at the Embassy Suites right here. So I was able to show him from the aerial standpoint about the activations going on at the Boulevards of Arts. So, he got some good insights into that, understanding that, yes, the intersection is not the highest fatality, but it could be. And we need to do something now, as slow as DOT works sometimes, is like we need to start working on this now to ensure that by the time all these things come out, bicyclists and pedestrians, that there's some sort of improvement that they're considering to do at that location. So with that, I want to open up for any dialogue.
Yeah, let me just kick it off on that point. You make good points. I mean, we've got 450 dwelling units being built in the Rosemary today, another 450 coming on the other side of 41. We've got 300, or pick a number, 400, but a lot that's going on, plus the Bay is an attraction. We had some drone work done of the intersection, just if that's of any aid in picture being worth 1,000 words. The Voco Hotel has changed hands. I don't know what your design options might be, but who knows what could be discussable as far as an acquisition of, if you needed a little bit of property. Any thoughts on that? I mean,
yeah. So one thing is that we can't force anybody to give up property, right? That's not something the city does. But what we are going to do is advocate. We've done that in other areas where, if there's a new development going to come on, that we can advocate for. We still have the renderings and the pieces and how the roundabout needs to be and the size of it and all that aspect of it. So, as if it does come through the DRC process and that aspect of it, certainly we're gonna do what we can to ask and say this is what the vision is for the community, to put a roundabout in there, and we can certainly go about it that way. I mean, I don't think, as development happens, we're also looking, and this is not just at this location. I mean, I know this is outside the DSCA area, but it's also dealing with MLK and Myrtle. There's roundabouts at those locations as well. Because as people enter into the city, we want them to slow down throughout the city. And, the issue right now with DOT is that right-of-way acquisition's been very costly. So some of those projects and those roundabouts at those locations have kind of stalled. But what we are doing as a city is we're protecting those envelopes where we can put a roundabout in there so that, once we do have the funding and the resources, that we can move those projects along. So again, I can't say whether that's going to happen or not, but I think we're going to try, I think, because we know what the vision is for the community. And if we can get the right of way to build a roundabout, we'd be open to that,
Okay. Other board members, questions to build on?
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming. Regarding the intersection, thank you for the progress. I think it's going to help a lot. I don't know if it's sufficient, but it's definitely going to help. Our concierge at the Boulevard mentioned to me a few weeks ago that there was a camera that she was monitoring on the web of that intersection. And that makes me ask a broader question, which is, why can't there be a camera at that intersection? Or what is FDOT's point of view on where they put cameras and who has access to that information? And do they use that information to sort of decide if this is a risky versus waiting till somebody dies?
Okay, so let me address the camera that this person may be alluding to. Again, I don't know where they get this information, but this at US 41 at Gulfstream.
Mhm.
It's on a private property. It's on one of the condos, and they're live streaming that camera, So meaning we, the city and the county, doesn't have jurisdiction on putting cameras in the right of way because there's some pretty stringent rules in the Florida statutes to do that. Now, SPD does have some exemption, but that's not for tracking and
But what about that?
cars that are on the intersection. I think Saji can explain that.
So the state has either allowed or purchased cameras. It could have been with joint projects with the county potentially, but there is a website that does have cameras for traffic purposes only that shows that. So it's possible that it's one of those maybe, but I wouldn't think you were going to be seeing that at a roundabout because it's meant specifically for traffic. And so when the state either allows or purchases, it's with gas tax funds, and gas tax funds has to be for transportation purposes. And so those cameras would be focused on that. But I'm pretty sure you can get to it through the city's website, but then there is also a state website as well where you can access cameras throughout the city and you can look at them, but it's focused on traffic, right?
Understood.
And they don't record, and it's not, not historical from that perspective, but you can watch it live and see current live conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Now, Patrick?
Yes, quickly, again, I don't know how much you know about the organization DSCA within our 25 years history of the city, having advocated along many different areas, transportation being one of them. We've been really strong advocates for all the roundabouts, anxious to see them come in, big part of education, strong on the green space too, green space policies for the city advocated through the groups here. So we understand the issues of conflict when you're trying to implement policies across range. And you mentioned the EDCM, and it has in its advocacy for wider sidewalks. However, what we find is in the downtown zone districts, the 3 downtown zone districts, it's now advocating to go from 5 feet to 10 feet, whereas it's now minimum 6 feet, but the preferred width is 10 feet. And in the process, we're finding, like in the 10th Boulevard of the Arts projects, that means removing mature trees. And also the question is, from an environmental standpoint, you are currently only heating up 5 feet of sidewalk width, and now you're going to be having the sun heat 10 feet of sidewalk width with less trees. So what is your particular viewpoint as to how you balance the sustainability aspects with creating more walkability and making it safe in summertime for people to walk in the Southwest Florida heat?
So let me take a first. There's a couple of competing things going on, specifically in the downtown area, specifically with the streets, the way they're laid out. There's so much right away, right? I mean, that's the challenge, right? And to increase multimodal opportunities, I think that's where the challenge is, 6 foot versus 10 foot. And especially when we got a real activated, I just talked about activation and the developments going on between the 2 areas, but I also know that sustainability with the heat maps and, you know, being able to balance out the trees and those aspects of it is as important, you know, because it's all about the environment and the way you walk through the environment, about walking on a sidewalk while having shade trees and, having that sustainability aspect of it. We are doing what we can to try to balance those needs. And I think the challenge is like certain areas, there's give and take because there's so much right of way. You have to be able to move all type of freight vehicles, have bicyclists as well. And now there's scooters on the right of way. And then you also have pedestrians, right? And then also at the same time, we're trying to accommodate trees and sustainability aspect of it. So that's something we're going to continue to look at. We understand sustainability is a critical part of the city's strategic vision, so we want to get there. We are going through different revisioning of complete streets and that aspect of it. We're going to be looking really hard on how can we bounce those ideas. Saji, do you want to add anything else?
Maybe a couple thoughts. I'm going to play the new guy card as long as I can. So, without knowing all of the details, I'll give you a 30,000 foot level thought process without going through the specifics of it. But generally, the way I kind of look at it, and I think this is supported from our attorneys and past ways we've looked at, our code versus our EDCM, so our engineering details. Typically the code or the requirements often are the what is the thing, and then the engineering design details are the how. And so you mentioned the 10 foot, and I think it's worded preference, right? So all things the same, no conflicts. A 10-foot wide sidewalk is nice because you can walk it, you can use it, you can improve pedestrian safety aspects and those kind of things. But it's also preferred, so knowing that there are going to be constraints, and one of them could be mature trees. One of them could be other safety components. As Nick was referring to, right of way is not an issue. Great. Let's try and see how much walkable space we can create. If it is an issue, then now how do we make those things fit? And not just to quote or brown nose the boss, but balance is important, right? So how do you balance the safety components with the other things? The vulnerable users we were just talking about with pedestrians and cyclists, that's an important balance. And so how do you balance those things? And so trying to write in the code that gives you those options, and that's why it's a preferred and then a minimum. The other piece of that is you maybe have heard context, so what does a area of detail look like? What's engineering detail look like based off of what the environment is? So, is it a downtown Main Street, or is it just a downtown street? Is it a major roadway, or is it a local roadway? And those all would have a different look to their cross sections, or could. And so a lot of times there needs to be a differentiation between, and I'm going to say it wrong, you mentioned them, the downtown corridor versus the DTE, DTC, see, I'm playing the new guy card, whatever those are, right? So kind of more of a zoning for the what, and then we have to apply the how from the engineering details. So I'm going to say real easy without looking at all the details, right? Like there's got to be a way to manage both of those. It's not a one size fits all. And as you mentioned, green's important, shade's important, safety is important, but we still like our cars. So we got to figure out how those fit too. And so the idea is to balance all those pieces. How's that for a non-answer?
Just embroider on, the punchline is we like trees. And I know firsthand experience, if there's an amenity planting strip, it needs to be 6 or 7 feet to get a canopy tree in there, or the arborists are worried about costing a fortune for root barriers and whatever. And if something has to give and it's a little bit of sidewalk width, we'll take that trade-off. And what makes us nervous sometimes, I know, and this is, somebody in staff has talked about canopy trees where feasible, that word where feasible. So the question is, if we're forced to the wider sidewalk, the canopy tree becomes not feasible. And we would like to be involved in that dialogue and please get, I know, Nick, we actually kid about this. You guys get the memo. We like canopy trees. We like
Oh,
shade.
absolutely.
We're losing, I think I looked and worked some years ago. I think we've lost 1,000 trees in the Rosemary alone in the last 7 years. So this is brutal. I mean, there's no nice way to put it. And sometimes when trees get replanted, they're in courtyards only open to the residents or their palms. So please, we request, we do everything to make the case. And if they're canopy trees, let's make them 4 or 5 inches, 6 inches in diameter versus twigs. So that's this, in simple terms, we want canopy trees, please. Okay.
Is there a way of using porous materials for the sidewalk material so that could help canopy trees without affecting and still get sidewalk out of the mix? You know, because it's one thing. I mean, if you have like as on Main Street, you walk down Main Street and obviously there's a tree in the middle of the sidewalk, and then another 50 feet down, there's another tree in the middle of the sidewalk. But in the meantime, you have 40 feet of sidewalk in between those two trees, which gives you the benefit of having the wider thing. And if there was more porous materials versus good old American concrete, that would allow more flow through, would do a couple things. Obviously, it would help the drainage, but it also would help support the trees.
Yeah, and that's a good feedback. We've been looking at the high corridor area specifically. I mean, so just a couple of weeks ago, Pat and I walked all the way up and down Main Street, and there's a couple of trip and fall hazards, right? And the reason is because some of the trees are trying to expand and the roots are coming out, and it's buckling some of the situations out there. So, I actually talked to Saji about this. Is like, hey, we need to look at materials that can be flexible, but yet can be porous as well. So we're looking at a couple options where trees can still survive, but yet, we're not having those kind of defects. Now, obviously with all things like those, different materials can definitely cost a lot. There's cost benefit and safety and other aspects of it. So, especially as we're redoing some complete streets and that aspect of it, we're certainly looking at that. And we're also looking at from sustainability standpoint, because that has been a key theme that we've been talking about lately, and storms and low impact designs, with trees. Those are actually good for the urban context, because they actually take on some of the water and that aspect of it. So we're definitely looking at that, and that's going to be, it's also going to be important discussion as part of the downtown master plan as well.
Any final questions, because we're running on an abbreviated schedule there, but I just want to say, Nick, how much we appreciate what staff does and how this isn't easy. And Sajay, the memo, again, another memo, is we would like to work with you and we would like to work with city staff. I think we've had an excellent working relationship with Nick and had some frank discussions at times, but let's keep that up, because I think we end up with a better result. And talking early and involving in the process benefits everybody and makes your life simpler, and that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, and I also want to say one thing is that you guys have been great to work with. It's never been contentious in the sense of like, it's never been, when passion comes together, right? It's a good thing, because at the end of the day, we understand where you guys stand, and we know that that's important to the community, and that's something that we're gonna work on. And I got to tell you that David's been a good advocate, as well as Patrick and some of the folks that we've worked with, as well as you. I mean, it's really, that's what makes a city a great place, is y'all talking and having that conversation with us and sharing your feedback. I think that's important, because if y'all didn't do that for US 41 and Boulevard to Arts, things wouldn't be changing. Things wouldn't be adaptive. And I think DOT and everything. So, guys, back only here to to listen and make the city the best it can be. We may see it differently, but we definitely want to make this the best it can be for everybody. So thank you for that.
Great. All right, thanks so much. Now what we're gonna continue with our board meeting. We sure hope you can stay for our holiday party. If you guys want to stick around or go out in your car and text or whatever you want to do, but we sure appreciate you coming here and look forward to you staying if at all possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.